185 of the TV Dudes podcast, recorded May 31st, 2018. Blame Ambien.
We should blame Ambien for a lot of things. Like, I took some Ambien and I made an entire podcast about terriers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I woke up and there's a whole podcast.
I was watching TV late at night and an Ambien commercial came on, and then I woke up the next morning.
That's Ambien-ception.
Yeah, just from the commercial, man.
I may have committed some light treason.
Light
under
treason.
Ambien. Some mild treason.
Invaded the firewalls of a foreign country, perhaps.
Oh, man. Didn't know that you could just blame anything on Ambien.
I didn't know that, but you apparently can.
Folks, we got quite a show this week. We're going to be discussing AP Bio, which just wrapped up its first season and got renewed over on Fox. Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Isn't it NBC?
It's NBC.
Is
NBC.
it NBC?
And Fox. Here's
The
what,
Mick kind of mixes it up.
Here's a little. Here's a little.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a little device I used to remember it. Fox has no good sitcoms left anymore. NBC has all of them.
Well, Brooklyn Nine-Nine just wrapped up on Fox and is jumping ship over to NBC.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to discuss that a little bit. Dear White People concluded its second season, and Randy is going to recap that for us a bit. And we're also going to talk about The Break, which is Michelle Wolf's new comedy news series on
weekly show.
Netflix,
Yeah.
I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Westworld. So we got a full slate here,
Yeah.
guys.
Yep.
Before we get into that, though, we are the TV Dudes. I'm Grant.
I'm Randy.
And I'm Kyle.
And, guys, let's do a little quick house cleaning, all right? We want to remind you listeners that you guys can go to iTunes and give us a little 5-star review, and that'll help us out. Write a little whatever, and we'll read it here on the show. Also, you can help us out by going to patreon.com/tvdudes and make a per-episode pledge. Give us $1 per episode that we release. If we do not release an episode, no charge. And it's a great way to support us. We really appreciate it. It's really clean and easy for you guys on the user end. You just say, hey, if they release an episode, $1. We also release bonus content. Les does a couple interviews each week. We don't charge for any of that if you guys are ever curious. Only once a week, our main podcast episode is what we charge. And we also do bonus exclusive content for all of you guys who are patrons to show our love and appreciation. And in fact, we got 2 new patrons this week. Michael Barron and Oscar Osario.
Woohoo!
Welcome
Thank you
aboard.
both.
Thank you for your monies.
We also got a special request that we discuss our favorite Disney songs from Disney films. And you bet your ass we're going to do that this week.
I am weirdly excited about that Patreon.
So if you guys are patrons, I hope you do enjoy our Patreon episode this week. If you aren't yet and you've been waffling and suddenly the idea of us discussing Disney songs has you sold, please go to patreon.com/tvdudes and make your pledge today.
Also, if our Patreon levels jump up like a whole bunch after this, we'll know. Oh, we need more Disney more Disney song content. We might even just start singing Disney songs every episode.
it's just going to be Patreon karaoke. Is what we're gonna do.
Yes.
I mean, we're doing it in our free time. Let's do it on the listeners' time.
And then we also want to remind you guys that we are proud members of the Electric Sweater Network.
Electric sweater.
Oh, all right.
I like that. Nice.
It's always different.
Yeah.
Each week, our sing-song.
I don't know. I say throw that on a soundboard.
If you guys are unfamiliar, we were formerly of the Permanent Record Network.
Permanent record.
And the only reason I bring that up is so that you guys can do that. So. But we just changed the name of it. It is still the same great TV-loving podcast network franchise that is run by our fearless leader, Mike Moody.
Mike Moody.
And we are happy to be a part of it and talk about TV.
I have a Monday morning quarterback thing, if you're unfamiliar with the phrase because you're not a football fan. No. It's like when you come back after the fact and you're like, here was an idea, but what if instead of changing the name to Electric Sweater, you just change the name to the mark, what's that
Prince?
called? No,
Like Prince?
Yeah,
A hexagon?
The hexagon, and you're the studio formerly known as Permanent Record.
Oh, shit.
Uh-huh.
We're hexagon.
That'd be really hard to do like a vocal tag for. Hexagon.
I don't know what you do.
Yeah.
I'm glad we don't have to try and figure that one out.
It'd be fun, though.
I guess we can just go ahead and jump over to the news. There's
Yeah.
a little
Beep,
bit
beep,
of
beep,
TV
beep,
news.
beep, beep, beep.
One story is, of course, going to dominate, but we'll hold that for the last.
Yep. So, Lock and Key, I guess, is this third time's the charm?
I think so.
Right? I'm not wrong, right? That it had a pilot.
It had a pilot
On
that aired
Fox.
over on FX.
Was it FX? No, it was Fox.
Was it?
Yeah.
I know that FX did.
And it didn't get picked
Nick
up.
Stahl.
And then FX picked it, and then FX tried it, and they didn't pick it up. And then Netflix is picking it up and has ordered a series.
You know, this is based on Joe Hill's comic book series, and he is the son of Stephen King, so he kind of has a little bit of know-how into the horror realm.
Oh, it was a pilot shot for Hulu. So yeah, Fox and then Hulu. It's a really good story. It's about a sort of a haunted house with
Bunch of orphan kids.
yeah, and like doors that open in other dimensions and that kind of thing. It's a 6-volume graphic novel series. And Carlton Cuse is going to be showrunning this thing. Who I don't know. He's done something people like.
Here's the thing about him.
Yeah.
He partnered with Lindelof, and Lindelof is the mastermind of Lost.
Uh-huh.
And he's the guy who's great at running shows behind the scenes. He also came up at Nash Bridges with Damon Lindelof. But he's gone on to a whole bunch of shows that I feel like just kind of stinkers.
Yeah.
Like he did that Josh Holloway show, that like futuristic thing with him and Sarah Wayne
Colony?
Kelly.
Is that him?
The Colony.
Oh, I didn't know that was him.
He did a couple other projects.
He did
I want
the,
to say he was part of Bates Motel.
Bates Motel was one of those things, but I thought that was really supposed to be good. I didn't watch it,
I didn't watch it either,
but I heard it was good.
yeah, he's done a series of things,
I
but
like that kid, isn't it?
I don't know necessarily what to think of him being behind this. But I did see that Scott Derrickson has worked on this a little bit.
Yep.
And our can I call him friend?
Sure.
Cargill has also collaborated a little bit, working on writing for some of the
Right.
episodes.
So Derrickson had to step down for schedule conflicts.
Yeah.
So the new pilot is directed by Andy Muschietti, who did It.
Well, they had to also like reshoot the pilot, I guess.
Yeah,
for this.
and there's also just some recasting going on. But amongst the people we know are in it, Francis O'Connor, Danny Glover. That's pretty good.
Francis O'Connor, love her.
Yeah. So
You know what this Lock and Key premise reminds me of?
what's that?
You ever seen that movie Little Monsters with Fred Savage?
Yes.
Where they like crawl under the bed. And then they're like,
It's like a little bit of that, a little bit of Monsters Inc. All these crazy doors.
oh yeah, I guess Monsters Inc. already ripped that movie off.
Right.
But yeah, I'm good for Lock and Key, man. It's been a long road for them.
Very cool.
And then speaking of surprise, well, not super surprising, but The Expanse was briefly canceled.
Yes.
And then got picked up by Amazon for season 4. This is great news for me because I don't want to mess with Sci-Fi's crappy app, but I love The Expanse. So if it's just going to come on Amazon Prime, that's great.
Yeah. And Amazon needs this.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
this has a built-in audience, and Amazon so desperately wants to be in the genre game on making original series programming, and their shows are kind of hit and miss. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe the Lord of the Rings thing's going to be a big hit,
Right.
but also maybe not.
I think we're looking at, with The Expanse coming on and Lord of the Rings started looking interesting, I think we may be starting to see a thing where Amazon starts to fight Netflix a little for dominance.
Right.
So, so that's it for news, right? Nothing else happened this week?
No, is there nothing else? I could think of one thing.
Oh, right. Roseanne set her career on fire.
Yeah, she did. Here's the thing about that. It's like, oh, finally you see that she says fucked up stuff all the time. She's a terrible person.
Yep.
See, I just imagine like years and years ago, like Tom Arnold, Manchurian Candidate style, whispered something in her ear, and she's just been a ticking time bomb ever since then until now it's exploded, and he's just like sitting back watching it burn, like,
He unlocked something horrible in her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she used to be sort of this champion of some progressive ideals on that show,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But then she drank some Kool-Aid and went a little wacky, and now just likes tweeting out conspiracy theory, like vile conspiracy theory
Here's what-
stuff. I'm sure she's mentioned something related to Sandy Hook and all that.
Here's the crazy thing is not only did they she got erased. Like not only did her show go off, like ABC canceled her show like that day, but all her reruns have been pulled from everywhere, including the Country Music Channel. Like,
Wow.
everybody she's been erased as much as Cosby has. It's crazy.
Her PR or her reps also dropped
Her reps dropped her. Yeah.
Everyone just went, no, this is unacceptable. And I'm like, where were you during her Pizzagate stuff or her
Guys,
anti-Semitic George Soros stuff?
I'm just going to say it because I might be the only one who has the balls to say it, but much nicer of a person when she was fatter. All right. I think the moral here is this dieting shit. Don't mess with it.
All right. Good news, because I'm gonna just getting fatter.
Yeah, you don't want to end up like Roseanne.
Yeah.
Fucking racist.
Keep eating that cake, Randy.
I keep eating that cake. The thing that boggles my mind about this is, why was this the last straw for ABC? They were already getting shit for her being involved. Like,
I think that. I mean, I wonder if like they've also noticed, like, hey, you're a visible person right now. You're a liability. Don't do it again. And she just can't help herself.
Yeah.
And she did it again because she thinks, oh, you know what? I have my people I talk to. I get a charge out of riling up my side with these kind of outlandish things I say.
Yeah.
And I'm too big now to face consequences because she has one of the biggest shows. Also, why this is kind of a big shocker, because I think we are so desensitized right now by the era of Trump, where it seems like there aren't consequences for saying really fucked up, shitty things anymore because of him. He's started this new precedent, and people used to be held accountable a bit more for this stuff, and now they're not. So the fact that they did this with one of the highest grossing shows on TV, and they did it decisively and quickly, like within 30 minutes.
yeah.
Well-
it's weird to me though. It just doesn't make it. It doesn't track with like they've already put her on the air, and you had to have known she was like this.
Well, no, I can imagine the last time we all looked at her and said, what the hell is CBS doing? They said the same thing. ABC, sorry. They said the same thing, but they were behind the wheel on that. All right. So what happened is, like, right now, this was already in effect. They were just waiting for the next time where she slipped up, and they already had a plan in place, and they knew what they were going to do because, like you said, we've watched, they've seen it, they've kind of sat by and done nothing.
Yeah.
But I think they've been making their plan and making sure they knew what they were going to do when they had to.
But why even do the revival in the first place? It's not like Roseanne being awful has been a secret.
I mean,
Well, but there's a lot of awful people out there now who watch TV.
it's true, but I guess you could look at how successful it was and their belief that they could rein in a talent in order to revive something, since revival's really in vogue with other shows right now. And it's like, oh, we have this property. We actually have all of the cast members lined up because a lot of them didn't move on. Somehow we got John Goodman to say okay.
Yeah.
And so I guess let's do it, right?
So what do you guys think about? There's been a lot of people going around like, oh, why don't they recast her? You know, I feel bad for all the other actors. I feel bad for the people on the show.
There have been those discussions out there?
I don't know if you've been in.
That would
I don't know if
be
you've been in
like-
any of those discussions, Grant. I don't know if I've seen any of them. So
That'd be like, what if they recast Dr. Huxtable, but still called it The Cosby Show? Like,
what if they digitally went back and put Christopher Walken in there instead?
oh,
No, not Christopher Walken.
Christopher Plummer, yeah.
Christopher Plummer. Although Christopher Walken also would work.
Theo, I am your father.
Well, I think that, there's a possibility. Like, the rest of the infrastructure is there. They could drop her. And I wasn't watching the show actively, but I heard, like, part of the storyline involved, like, showing that she seemed to have a bit of a dependency on opioids. Which, hey, what an easy way to just kill her off, be topical, and move on with the rest of the cast in a way that liberates them from what a terrible person Roseanne Barr in real life is. So I guess they could do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I had a problem with what the show represents. Also, I have a problem with the format of the show itself.
Yeah.
And I was there was a discussion about like having sympathy for the rest of the cast getting canned here, and I'm like, I'm not that sympathetic to them. They signed on with a volatile person. Because they know this is like it's a business, and hey, also it's business.
This is the sympathetic move. John Goodman can go be in something else now. Like, that is this. Yes, we did him a favor.
And you know what? They could. Other people can hire the rest of those people now.
If there were good people on the crew, they can go with all the people. who go to do other things.
Oh,
and here's
the crew's fine. The crew are all
They're
union.
going to go to their shows.
They're going to
right?
get picked up by other shows because they're all like filling crew right now to film all these brand new shows. They're going to be great.
Yeah. Also, let's keep in mind the wisdom of Kevin Smith in Clerks when he was talking about the Death Star and contractors working on the Death Star. You guys know this bit, right?
Oh yeah.
There's a bit where they're discussing about all the innocent people got killed on the Death Star building it, and there's a contractor who comes in. He's like, "Hey, let me tell you, I found out about this job, and there was this mafia guy. It was his house, and I didn't take the job. My buddy took it, and he got shot. And he's like, sorry, you know where you're working." It was like, and I believe there's something to be said there. Like,
you do know that you're working on a thing they call the Death Star.
yeah, if you signed on to work with Roseanne, you're working on the Death Star.
No one was oblivious to the fact that she was tweeting out stuff about Pizzagate.
Yep.
That she was tweeting about Seth Rich and the stupid, shitty conspiracy stuff that was harassing his family after he died. So, yeah, no sympathy there.
Nope, not at all.
They didn't want to speak out then because it's their job. And you know what? That's your job. It's gone.
Yeah.
You banked on the wrong horse or whatever.
Banked on the wrong horse.
Yeah, bet on the wrong horse?
Let's make that an
I
expression.
don't know.
Yeah.
There's an expression
You
there.
banked on the wrong horse.
You banked on the wrong
This
horse.
teller's eating hay. He can't deal out any bills. He's got hooves for hands.
All right, guys, so we got a slew of shows. That's right, I said a slew of
A whole slew.
A plethora.
Okay, is a plethora more than a slew?
I feel like a plethora might be like a little, it's like slightly too many. And
Yeah.
a slew is like a bunch.
Like, I would think a slew is like, about a dozen, right?
What's a fuck ton?
I would say a plethora is like 30. A fuck ton.
A fuck ton is 3 shitloads.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I want one of these little, like, how good are you at math kind of Facebook messages. 3 fuck tons equal.
And distance you can always measure by Starbucks. I live 3 Starbucks from here.
Yeah, that's true.
Perfect. I forgot what. Okay, I think I was going to say what we're discussing here.
We're just solving math.
We're going to discuss AP Bio, followed by Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Then we're going to jump over to Netflix for Dear White People and The Break. And then we're going to wrap things up with Westworld, as always. But first up, AP Bio. The first season just wrapped on the Glenn Howerton NBC comedy.
So we talked about this when it first came on. We've seen like, what, 2 or 3 episodes?
Yeah, and I think we're all like fairly positive on it. We're like, we're interested in this. We don't know how much is going to carry.
I was a little lukewarm, I remember.
You know, the pilot was the lowest rated episode of the season on IMDb's per episode rating.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle, but I thought like you were feeling pretty positive about that first few, and you were pretty impressed based on the kids, the extent.
Yeah, I was really surprised when I saw that rating because even looking at the whole season, I think they came in with a really strong pilot.
Yeah.
And kind of set up this world where Jack is a little bit like Dennis from Always Sunny, but now he's thrown kind of in the real world.
Except for he's actually smart and intellectual.
Yeah, I keep saying
just
that.
think
It's
he
like,
is.
no, he knows a little bit, but he still just wants to like sabotage himself. But no, the premise, I feel like it kind of set up where they could go in a bunch of different directions with it, which is what I think they did. Is they went in a lot of different directions and they tried a bunch of different stuff over the course of this first season.
It's a pretty great story where a guy that is he's from Harvard. He's a Harvard philosophy professor.
Yep.
Has a big fall from grace and is basically relegated to having to teach high school kids in Toledo, Ohio.
And it's like he just took bio, even though he's a philosophy professor.
Yeah, and he's just miserable and being completely shitty to all these fairly good, earnest kids.
These honor students who want to learn, they want to get their college credit.
And he's kind of training them to be terrible people like him.
Yes, he is.
And yeah, I was just really struck by how great all these kids are in their little roles and how it kind of develops into this ensemble cast. It feels very much like The Office.
Oh, yeah.
How you would see all these background players that end up, whenever they start contributing more and more, you want more and more from them.
Yeah, no, I think the kids are definitely a main strength of this show.
Can we talk about Heather?
Is that the girl with the glasses?
Yes.
Okay.
Breakout star of this show.
I mean, yes, but I would say like so many of them.
I know, but her in particular, her
Victor, the redhead tuba kid,
also great. But Heather's like willingness to sign on to the craziness of all of it, and then this sort of hint that she has this really sort of dark backstory. Like she's definitely the person who's going to grow up to be a serial killer.
Yeah, she's
yeah.
pretty edgy, and she also is the one who like encourages Jack's like worst impulses. She's like, no, let's explore that some more. I think you can do it. I think you can really fuck over that.
Well, and I don't know if you've seen the costume designer character from The Incredibles, but this character has giant glasses like a cartoon character. So every time
magnifier.
Yeah, and you hear these crazy things come. Give me your sweet love juice.
You know what else she makes me think of? She makes me think of the character. Remember the end of Ferris Bueller, the kid on the bus?
Yeah.
That's what I think of every
These
time I see
gummies
her.
are warm from being in my pocket.
Yeah. I feel like that kid might be her mom.
This has Patton Oswalt, which is funny because I think that he's like actually one of the smaller performers in this. And I'm more impressed by the gaggle of teachers that are kind of the posse, that the three women that are competing over friendship, and that just kind of showed this other slice of life of this high school that, like, yeah, Jack's kind of a terrible guy. They're also kind of terrible.
I love
the
the teachers. Yeah, I love the teachers.
What was it? The episode where the janitor tries to ask one of them out. So then they just keep creating love triangle after love triangle.
Yeah.
I would, but my friend's really into you, and I just can't do that to her.
Yeah, the humor on this. You were saying, I think, off mic, how this is trying to be accessible. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia for families, right?
Yeah, no, and actually, when I said that, I meant it a little bit as a diss, because I think that early on in the season, I really like it. Everybody's kind of playing it a little close to the chest, Nobody's going too far out, and the material kind of like works itself out.
It reins itself in naturally, right?
And then as it goes on, there's a couple of episodes where the Jack character gets a little crazy. Patton Oswalt's principal character is a little goofy, but a little goofier than you would.
Over the top, right?
Yeah. And, I found myself at some of those times going, man, this show could really use somebody like Dan Harmon to just make it like a pinch crazier. Like there's an episode called Rosemary's Girlfriend, where it kind of turns into this Rosemary's Baby type parody episode. Yeah. And there was a lot of fun stuff in there, but I kept wondering, like, what would they do with this on Community?
Yeah, I can see that, actually. Yeah, like, it's just a slight tweak for Edge.
Well, and, we haven't talked about him much, but this creator, Michael Patrick O'Brien, you may remember him. He was on SNL for a while.
Yeah, Michael O'Brien.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
He's one of the writers.
Correct. Well, and then he was a cast member for a little bit.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I actually remember him. He did a couple Portlandia characters I really liked. But, this guy seems a little younger than some of the people that, we usually talk about as running shows. And who knows? Maybe he's like getting his feet under him this first season. And this could turn into something like Community, which definitely in the early days it was trying to figure it out. But once it hit its stride, it was there.
The other thing, though, is it does go to a pretty dark place. I love the runner that Miles, they start catfishing Miles.
Yep.
And Heather's the one doing it. And then that comes full circle at the end because Miles sort of helps out Jack. I almost called him Dennis. And it all comes crashing down because of the catfishing.
Right.
Well, no, and I feel like that perfectly sums up this show. It's that, this whole time the main character, Jack, is doing like everything in his power to essentially sabotage himself.
Yeah.
He thinks he's going to get ahead in life by, putting other people down or by getting through life easier. And in the end, he finds out that he had what it took to get what he wanted the whole time without sabotaging anyone. But because he did, he sabotaged himself.
In a way, it is kind of like Community in that you have this big shot that ends up getting cut down and forced to like deal with people that he thinks is beneath him. And similarly, he
because you definitely start the season and it's like how are you doing? It's like fucking terrible. I'm in Toledo, like and that becomes a theme. And then there's a great scene in the last episode where he's talking to the principal, and he comes in there essentially. We in spoiler territory yet?
Yeah.
All right. So towards the end of the season, obviously, he sabotages himself. You'll see it coming. But no, he comes in to essentially ask for his job back, and the principal, Patton Oswalt, just starts begging him to work there. And this is normally something where we'd see him like gloat or be like, oh, maybe I need a little extra. But you could just see this like defeated look on his face. And he was just like, yeah, okay. And it really kind of, I think, sets up where the character's going to be next season.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I think you made a good point, Kyle. I think that basically this show it's really good, but it needs just that extra gear. It hasn't found its extra gear yet.
Well, it seems to be a little bit hesitant to pepper in too much of the heartfelt moments.
Right.
Like it wants to have him drag his heels, but there's a scene where Jack is hanging out with the rest of the teachers at a bar, and he sees this one person, Bostonian, that he can go and like hit on, and she talks shit about his friends, and he actually becomes defensive of them.
Yeah.
And that's like a mark of him starting to identify with these Toledo people and care about them. Then later he's got this relationship with the redhead kid because he wants to bang his mom.
Very hot mom.
And then he realizes that kid has daddy issues just like he does, and he's like, well, I'll actually genuinely help out this kid. And like it's these baby steps to like becoming a family with them. And I kind of like how they're handling that, because it's not the saccharine method that they could do, and Community could go a little saccharine, but I think
that's true.
Community earned it, and this is a show that has a different tone and needs to maintain that. So I like the pace it's going.
Can I compliment something weird about this show? So a recurring theme is like I almost said Dennis, Jack trying to get laid, or Jack talking about how many people he's had sex with.
Yeah.
Whoever is casting the women that he wants to have sex with, these women are beautiful. Like, and they're actresses I haven't seen in anything else. And I'm just like, every time he's like, I gotta have sex with this woman. You see the actress and you're like, I get it. Like, oh, that makes sense.
This show is a lot of fun. I still have a couple episodes. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm digging it. Maybe I'll drop the ball.
Well, if I could give like one, I think if they could do one thing to like make itself better, I think if it figures out or recognizes the time where it's the funniest. Like right now, I feel like it has all these moments where it gets really funny, but they haven't really reined that into their formula and kind of built the show around it. And I think it's probably going to have a lot to do with like the Jack character interacting with the kids, and then just getting a solid B story.
Yeah, I think it's whenever he puts them in really awkward positions, like when he got Victor to admit like who he wanted to marry, and it was the girl next to him, and then like the bell rings and that kid's just left in that terribly awkward position of having said that. And then they kind of repeat that joke, and I thought it hit so well each time. I'm like, those kind of moments are just perfect. His dynamic with the kids. Really digging this show, and I would highly recommend it. But Brooklyn Nine-Nine just wrapped up its 7th season?
5th.
8th, 12th season?
5th season.
5th season. It's last over on Fox before it jumps ship over to NBC.
That show was canceled for the shortest time ever. It was 30 hours.
Yeah.
It was canceled for 30 hours.
Well, it was one of the most ridiculous cancellations that I think we've seen anyway, so I guess it makes sense. What did you guys think of Brooklyn Nine-Nine this season?
I thought this season was great. Now, Kyle, I know you just watched the last few, right?
Yeah, I think I caught the final 5 of this season.
So I want to quick run through the first parts of it, because it opened up with Jake and Rosa in prison, and they did some really funny stuff with that, which this show really goes to different places. Like, they had the thing where they were witness protection. They had a thing where Jake was undercover inside the mob. Like, they have not been afraid to go, like, change their status quo. They did a Game of Thrones sort of riff with the Return to Skyfire, where they were protecting like a George R. Martin type. They did the Rosa coming out as bisexual, which was kind of a big story. They brought Doug Judy back as always. They did an episode called The Box, which is Jake and Holt investigating a dentist who they think murdered his partner, and it's a riff on the Homicide episode that Andre Braugher is famous for. And it's like a comedy take on that, but it's definitely this show is so smart. And amidst all this show is about Amy and Jake are getting married, so they're following through on that story arc. They introduced Jake's half sister, played by Nasim Pedrad, who I love.
Oh, nice.
And then we got to the last 4 episodes where they did the bachelor party and sort of leading up into the movie, or leading up into the marriage.
No, and the one thing that I noticed watching the show, and it's one, as soon as I heard that cancellation news, I was like, shit, because it's one that I don't catch weekly like some other shows, but I really should because, for one thing, the pacing. They are able to put in so many jokes, and these are not improv lines. You can tell, they are hitting, all of their lines, because not only are they cracking a joke, but they're also telling you what's going to happen in the next scene before they cut to a whole other B story where they're going to do the same thing. And everybody's just on their A game, spitting this stuff out, and it doesn't seem rushed. I mean, heck, Andy Samberg on here.
Yeah.
Give his lines to any other actor, and it would just be boring and fall flat.
Yeah.
And you see it in his face, the amount of energy that he has in every scene. It just brings kind of these jokes to life.
It's a fantastic ensemble, and you're right. Everybody's characters are so well defined that the humor comes out of the characters, not just situations.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the other thing I forgot, the main subplot they're dealing with is that Captain Holt is up for chief of police, right?
Yeah.
Police.
Against our gal from Fargo.
Running against our gal from Fargo, who I love. And she turns out to have some comedic chops as well, because she was really funny. But I thought these last 4 episodes, the Jake and Amy story has been this really sweet love story in the midst of this sort of goofy thing. They started off as sort of rivals, and it felt like there wasn't any real affection there. And then they were they were buddies who worked together, who kind of butted heads, and there might be a little spark, but didn't seem real. Then it slowly turned into Jake having affection for her, and they went through the whole romantic thing. She was seeing somebody else, and then they got together, and then they decided they were going to get married, and they had problems with that, and it felt like a real relationship. I think they did a great job of making it feel real and earned and still funny.
Well, and one of the things I like most about seeing how they do the relationship is that it doesn't seem like the show ever has to stop for it. It always seems to work naturally within there, and it gives you some of these heartfelt moments, pretty consistently too, without us being all right, Lifetime movie.
Yeah.
And thinking about AP Bio, they, especially early on, they had a few moments where you're like, oh, that's a genuinely sweet thing the character did, but then they kind of quit doing that. Know, this show has kind of got it built in, and they're able to nail it every time.
I also think they did a great job with they do callbacks. I mentioned Doug Judy, the Pontiac Bandit, he's in every season, but they do callbacks to Jake's love of Die Hard. That was big in the Bachelor episode and big in the wedding planning.
Oh gosh, that was great stuff.
And they did the great thing with what's the actor who was secret
Family Matters
guy. And then they bring back Teddy, Amy's sort of obsessive ex, for the final episode, and he's on the bomb squad. That was a great little callback.
Oh yeah, that was pretty good.
And the show stands alone as every episode's entertaining, but there's a through line to it. I think that's really impressive. But
well, and something I've noticed, because we binge through TV pretty often, and it's really easy to look for that show you just want to have on in the background. I don't think this is one of those shows.
No,
this comes on,
attention.
and I'm focused on it, and it's not because you need to. It's interesting. You want to know what's going to happen next,
and you're going to miss jokes.
And
this is super layered. This is not unlike, say, Parks and Rec. There's tons going on. It assumes its audience is intelligent and witty and able to keep up. Yeah, it's a great show. No sign of losing steam. This would have been a good ending if they had ended the show on this.
Oh,
they leave on
even with the cliffhanger,
but that's okay. It's a good cliffhanger. You don't actually need to know. This would have been a good ending. I'm glad that we're not ending it here.
So, Randy, the next show that we want to talk about is Dear White People, which is over on Netflix. It just had its 2nd season.
Yeah.
We were going to have both you and Ashley on last week to talk about it, but the scheduling, we started a little earlier than you could come.
Right. It just didn't work out.
And then Ashley couldn't make it this week. So could you at least give us a little rundown of how the second season went? Because I've heard good things.
I really like the second season. I like the first season of this quite a bit. Dear White People is set on a college campus. The first season centered around a fraternity having a blackface party, and it sort of told each episode focused on one character, and you saw stories sort of intersect, but it was sort of from the point of view of one character, and then the overall storyline resolved at the end. They do the same thing here because the lead character, Sam, has sort of lost the driver's seat of her own show, Dear White People, after all the events of last season. Everybody's changed. Reggie, who was the kid who was hung at gunpoint last season, and who was sort of like like the big man on campus in a lot of ways, has sort of lost a lot of his fire and is sort of dealing with post-traumatic stress. And the kid who was like a journalist is sort of still dealing with coming out as gay and finding his voice now that he basically crashed the campus paper by revealing that they had backers that were sort of racist. And all this stuff, basically every episode is a focus on one character, but the storylines keep going. And the big focus this season is that there's like an alt-right troll who is trolling the radio show host, and there's a mystery sort of as to who that person is and what they're trying to accomplish. And it feels very topical. And along with all of that kind of stuff, there's this story about Sam's white ex-boyfriend, who's this sort of very woke white dude, who is doing a documentary called Am I Racist? That is getting much bigger numbers than her radio show, Dear White People, and it's kind of bothering her. And that's all going on as well. And then toward the end, there's a big moment. I won't reveal what it is, but that affects Sam and that sort of leads her to go back home. And we see her with a couple of the friends from college, and we see them in a different setting. And it gets a little real, and it's really, really effective. It's such a good show. It has fantastic characters. It's really, really funny. It's really smart, and it's doing something I don't think any other comedy on TV is doing. Like Blackish, maybe a little bit, but this is very different.
So you said this is in the half-hour format.
Yeah, it's a comedy.
It's a comedy, but it also seems to have some what sounds like pretty dramatic moments. So
it's got some.
Does it just kind of like toggle back and forth and like flow?
It's got a serious undercurrent to it, but it's definitely a lighter comedy. Like it's like all the characters are very real, but the moments are always very funny. The interactions are funny. The characters are really likable.
This kind of sounds like something like a Smilf over on Showtime.
Yeah, I'd say it's in that vein.
Okay. Smilf, Barry recently over on HBO.
Yeah.
Also struck this odd tone of like, is it fully comedy?
Right.
Or no, actually, especially later in the season, becomes pretty much full out drama.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, okay. And this is 13 episodes?
10 episodes.
Oh, 10 episodes.
It's a quick binge. I binged it in 2 days. I really like it. I'm looking forward to a third season.
Oh my gosh, speaking of 13 episodes, did you see the Rotten Tomatoes score for 13 Reasons Why Season 2?
I heard it wasn't great.
I heard such bad things. We didn't even discuss it.
It was like 12%. Sorry.
Oh, man.
I just saw that and I was like, I've never seen a score that low.
You know what's funny about that is that they totally alluded to what the second season was going to be with the one kid with all the guns.
Yeah.
And it was going to be like this big school shooting thing. And then I think with the actual school shootings going on, they chickened out from that storyline, which might have been a good thing.
Probably was the right call.
But it doesn't sound like they had anything good to fall back on.
Couldn't have watched it if they had done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would
Unlike
be
now,
sickening.
where we all didn't watch it.
Yeah.
So anyway, The Break over on Netflix is a new one of those new news shows that's going to be a weekly content thing from Netflix.
Has Netflix been doing weekly content like this? Or
Joel
is this-
McHale's show, I think, is the other one that they've kind of kicked off, and I'm not sure if
Letterman's is monthly.
Letterman's is monthly.
And doesn't Chelsea Handler have a weekly?
Does she?
I think she does.
Huh.
There's also, what is that show? The Japanese show I was obsessed with for a bit. I think
yeah.
that was
Terrace House?
Terrace House. I think that one started releasing up. I could be wrong. That might not be releasing weekly.
That one's daily.
Daily.
It's hourly.
It could be, man. that thing
Nightly
is
in my
crack.
nightmares.
I can't go back to it. I won't ever leave again. But Michelle Wolf, who you might be familiar with from her recent, what was that?
The correspondence dinner.
Oh, you mean when she tore Sarah Huckabee Sanders a new one?
Yeah, that's the only
You
part I think
try
I
to
recall from her jokes was that she made some jokes about Sarah Huckabee.
I watched that whole thing and it was hilarious. Like, I love Michelle Wolf. She opened for Ali Wong last year at Moon Tower.
Oh, okay.
And she was hilarious. I've always loved Michelle Wolf. I loved her on Daily Show. I have a huge fondness for her.
She was adult Annie on the Late Late Show.
Was she? That's great. That makes sense. And so I was really disappointed in this.
I went into this not really familiar with her comedic style,
Yeah.
her voice, which she comes out right away and says, "Yes, this really is my voice," and
Yeah.
I'm like, "That's a thing to get used to." In the vein of like Fran Drescher or someone, it's
Yeah.
just it can be a little grating, and I found that some of her bits were funny, but it just felt like an old format in a way.
It definitely felt like she felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like I felt her being uncomfortable. And I felt her being kind of nervous. And at the same time, when she brought her buddy on from the Late Show, the writer
Yeah.
friend from the Late Show, I thought the two of them were like so self-congratulatory, and it put me off.
Just girls gabbing. You know, it's that whole thing of Michelle Wolf is hot right now. Like her career is on this awesome trajectory.
Yeah, right.
So when I heard we were going to be checking out a show she's doing, I wasn't surprised. Here's the problem, though. I don't know if necessarily she's been sitting around thinking about what she would do with the TV show.
Yeah.
I think she's been working to get the show, and now that she has it, it's like, oh, shit, what do I do?
That's the thing. I think there's not a mission statement yet, but I do want to see it develop because I feel like it could turn into something. I think Michelle Wolf has things to say. I've definitely seen her say it. And some of the weirder stuff reminded me almost of Dave Chappelle stuff. The Amazon, was it the Amazon Echo 4 or whatever that eats lunch meat?
I really
That
like.
was such a random thing that it cracked me up.
You know, that one was kind of silly, but she did the other one that was kind of a Miss Sloan ripoff where she's like, I'm a strong woman and I have
Yeah.
sex with male
I
prostitutes.
thought that was really funny too.
that one got me on the floor for a
I
bit.
wasn't as amused by those
No.
little commercial vignette things, like the cutaways.
I thought they were the strongest part of the show.
Did you see Miss Sloan?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that whole bit was like just shot for shot, really good parody.
I don't know. I think that there's nothing new or unique about the format. It feels like a rehash of what we've seen in a bunch of other shows. I didn't think that. I thought that some of her jokes were kind of funny, but it's still nothing was exciting about that. Her voice and her perspective weren't like charging me or anything. So I was just like,
Well, I would watch 100 more episodes of this before I watch the second episode of Joel McHale's new show.
oh well, yeah, that's a whole other garbage beast. I think.
I think this has potential. I don't know if I'll keep going back to it, but I really I like Michelle Wolf and I want the show to succeed. I can see the glimmer of it.
I hope that she doesn't try to write her show like she writes her stand-up specials, because she's not going to be able to do, a solid hour every week.
Right.
Like she is really good at doing that. She needs to find something, maybe even a slightly different voice for this. I mean, not her actual voice. No pun intended. No, I kind of like her voice. But no, get people to eat hot wings, or like what's the show, not gimmick, but what's the show got to say beyond just hear the jokes.
Like we watched Wyatt Snack's new show. Something PA
Problem areas?
Problem areas.
Yeah.
And I feel like that one has so much style and pizzazz to it. Like the design of the show, the entire like theme of how it wants to approach telling the information, how it chunks out different segments. It all feels both familiar and wholly unique to that show itself. And I really appreciate that. I found that one so much more engaging, and I wanted to watch it. And this just feels like cheaply made and phoned in, and then let's
Interesting, because I think if given the choice, I would watch this over Wyatt Snack's new show.
Well, this is much lighter than that show.
Well, Wyatt Snacks, but also Wyatt Snack felt like a dude who got really blazed and then did his show. And Michelle Wolf feels like someone who's a little cranked up, and it's almost opposite ends of the spectrum. Like he's
I'd
so
take his.
laid back. I felt like he didn't care, and I just couldn't get into it.
See,
but
I do about
I'll take neither.
I do 5 minutes of Wyatt Snack's show, and then I switch over to her show to pep me up a little bit. Usually 10 minutes, and then I go back. I like to
It's like
fluctuate
uppers and
between
downers.
Yeah,
I like it.
I like to balance out my TV.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
All right, guys, let's talk about our final show.
It's our main event. Fight night, fight
Westworld.
night.
I feel like this episode was a bit of a game changer here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked last week, Kyle, you and I and Ashley talked last week about the Westworld episode where it
Pretty
went
much
into
the Shogun World episode.
It went into Shogun World. I was a little bit down on that episode. I think you liked it more, Randy.
I loved Shogun World. That was my favorite episode of the season so
You know,
far.
my big takeaway was I thought Shogun World would have been an awesome episode 1 for this season.
Yeah.
Like, just throw
Just
us
jump
in.
into the. Well, I love the fact that he had basically cribbed the entire storyline and just moved over to Shogun World and like, do these guys seem familiar to you? And I also thought the actors
I did
they
enjoy
cast-
that a lot, too.
The actors they cast as the Shogun were really, really good. Like the Ronin was fantastic.
He's going to be in Avengers 4. They
Is
just
he?
cast him, yeah.
Really?
I wasn't familiar with the character.
Akane was really good. The
All the
geisha,
Doppelbots?
geisha. Like I really liked all those characters, and I liked the story, and so it also was nice to see Maeve feel like Maeve was in danger again, because I feel like she hasn't been in a while.
And until she unlocked like her new level of superpowers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask just a stupid question?
Sure.
Were any of those characters human? They were all robots?
They're all robots.
The geisha and
Yeah,
everybody?
they're all
Oh,
robots.
well, except for, the ones Maeve's brought.
Well, yeah, of course. One of the things that confuses me on the show is that the robots, when you kill them, they'll bleed, and especially in Shogun World, people are getting limbs cut off,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of blood. So I'm like, wait, they're robots still, right?
They're all
robots,
robots that just have very meaty, bloody parts now.
Yeah.
They've been able to mimic humans pretty close. Hence Bernard being a problem.
Yep.
But yeah, my complaints last week about Shogun World could basically be summed up as it felt like a throwback to season 1, and I feel like we've advanced in the plot more beyond having to see the trivial little side quests of one of these amusement park storylines.
Oh, I
And I
disagree.
thought like, oh, now we gotta see what's going on with the geisha and the army, and like it's a story that I didn't want now that there's such bigger things going on in the world.
But it's such
It
a
slowed
it's-
everything down.
It's such a reference to Maeve's story about looking for her daughter.
Yeah, but it was one note that I got, and then it padded it out with an additional 40 minutes. I didn't need, I guess.
I could have watched the whole season of Shogun World.
And here's, gosh, I'm going to sound like I'm coming down on the show, but I watch the Maeve crew, all right? It's essentially the B story, all right?
Yeah.
I watch the people who are filming that, the performers who are acting that, and I'm like, this is fucking Westworld. Like, this is top notch.
That's where I am too.
And then I go back to Dolores's, and I'm invested in the story still.
Yeah.
And I think the character who's playing Bernard, like, he's killing it.
Yeah.
But it just seems like they're not working as hard. Like,
Kyle,
they're
I'm
not
in the
selling.
same place. The
Yeah.
Maeve and her little gang. Whenever they're on the screen, I'm riveted. Dolores and what's her dude? She just mind wiped.
Teddy.
Teddy, Dolores and Teddy occasionally lose my interest, and
I agree there, too.
Much though I love what Wright is doing as Bernard, that story sometimes loses my attention too. I really like whenever Maeve is on screen, I'm captured, and I think that's part of why I like Shogun World, because it was an all Maeve episode.
And maybe it's too early to get into like the whole like theories
Never too
territory.
early.
No, we're spoiling, by the way, listeners. a
So
bunch of stuff.
I think of like Dolores as possibly an attempt to like unlock the consciousness or whatever, the point of the show. All right? I think of like, okay, Ford or Bernard or whoever, they got Dolores and they said, we're going to try to make it happen. Okay. And now Dolores thinks she has made that happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if we find out, no, it's Maeve who, like, they didn't even try to, like, create this thing. Like, Maeve has actually unlocked her, like, consciousness and now
I
has
think that's
actual
absolutely
free
what's
will.
going on. Like,
Yeah.
it seemed like more and more we're finding out that Bernard and more Ford were working toward two avenues of these hybrids. They were trying to have the AI that was able to unlock consciousness and operate freely, and they were doing that through Dolores. And then we also see that they were trying to provide immortality to humans by being able to take their mind and insert it into an AI machine and have it operate freely in that same regard, right? So they're operating on those two fronts, and then Maeve came in and was just an AI that unlocked it naturally, whereas Dolores seems to still be operating under some sort of guided principle to some extent by the vision of Ford, it seems like.
We could totally...
He wants her to be this warrior that overtakes the world, but Maeve is the true free spirit.
Well, and what if we find out later that Maeve is actually Arnold's attempt before Arnold died to do that same thing?
See? Okay,
because Bernard wouldn't know anything about that.
Right.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So this episode, though, I think I was most taken by the cold open and then that final scene. But let's start with the cold open, because we have a scene where, very familiar to us, once again, Bernard is interrogating Dolores, and they're going through this questioning process, and suddenly he says something that has Dolores freeze frame, a la Zach Morris, and go, hold up, stop, rewind, you didn't actually say that. And we find out that Dolores, similar to Delos in 2 episodes back with Jimmy Simpson's character, is the machine that is being tested for fidelity by Dolores. So the implication here is, well, because we don't know the timelines, we don't know if this is in the future and Dolores is creating a new version of Bernard and running through scenarios where she can have a version of Bernard that she can control, or if this is in the past and she's been running this game on him previous to when we were familiar with her having her enlightenment.
Right.
Yeah, possibly every scene that we've seen of the two of them down there could possibly... we think that it's Bernard talking to Dolores, but it could be Dolores testing him each time.
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah. We don't know. They're just messing with us.
It's kind of crazy. Yeah. You're suggesting that there's a secondary Bernard outside the window watching Dolores test this Bernard, and so she thinks she's in control, but there's another Bernard watching that?
Oh, no.
Is that what you're saying?
No, I was just saying that Dolores has been in control in all of these flashbacks.
Oh, okay.
So potentially last season we thought we were getting flashbacks to a certain incident, and then this would be a revelation. Oh no, those scenes mean something different now.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know
knows?
the ramifications of that, but what we see with that scene in particular, and the hearkening back to 2 episodes ago with Delos, is completely a game changer with that very final scene where we find that Bernard has entered into this other mindscape, and we find that in this other version of Westworld, I'm not sure if this is all in his head.
Oh, well, I think he's in the cradle, what they call the repository of host data at that point.
So is this a fictional world of the mind, Westworld?
Yes. Now the thing I have, I think that's all virtual, and the question I have is that a Robert Ford construct? It's not actually Robert Ford or his consciousness. It could just be the construct, using a familiar form to interface with him, basically.
I had a different interpretation.
Did you? Okay.
So we know that Bernard's been phase shifting from different times. Like he is unable to keep chronology straight.
Right.
So my first impression was that they unlocked something that took Bernard to a memory that had been wiped. And Ford knew that he wiped this memory, so now it's him actually going back and hearing what Ford said that he didn't want him to know this whole time. Kind of like, read this in case of my death type.
Could be. It could be.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I took it in part to imply that they had been working over and over and over with Delos to try and grant him immortality, and they just couldn't do it, and then they burned his corpse, right? A couple episodes ago. But Ford had actually figured it out. He'd unlocked it. So he made a duplicate of himself and has already had Bernard go and grab that duplicate and take and safeguard it. And that's what he was grabbing that little ball, and he keeps remembering himself grabbing that ball. That's the consciousness of Ford that he was grabbing and taking and importing into the cradle, so that Ford is now immortal. He no longer needs his body, so his self-sacrifice at the end was a little bit of a ruse. He still is alive within the park, and now he's running it through just his consciousness being implanted into the park, and he doesn't need his corporal form or whatever.
That's interesting.
Wow.
So now Anthony Hopkins is back in the game.
And I feel like that's kind of the bigger thing is, I was listening to something the other day, and they were talking about we can't write for people who read Variety, Like you just, if you find out who's in a project, some things are going to be spoiled,
Right.
But seeing Anthony Hopkins back there, like they definitely kept us under wraps.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he could continue to be a main character on the show depending on how they write it.
Maybe. I have a feeling
That's
it's a guest
exciting.
spot. We'll see.
You think so?
I do.
I
Just
don't
because
know.
of how old he is.
What else is he
and they
doing,
gotta kill
right?
him off?
I don't think I don't think he's probably a regular. I think it's probably a one shot, but we'll see.
Yeah. HBO.
yeah.
It's not TV.
It's true.
So we also get a bit more of the Shogun world and the parting of ways I was looking forward to, because you get Maeve kind of going back to her world and her quest.
I was sad that they stayed behind, but I was very happy at the end when the archer came with them.
It's like
Yeah.
they're picking up this ragtag crew
Yeah.
as they go along.
Yeah.
I like that.
The Mondo poster for Westworld is going to have that team on there in all their costumes.
Right?
Like
Yeah.
I can see it,
Yeah.
as clear as day.
But I also thought that the big showdown between I wouldn't. Are they samurai? I don't know what to necessarily call them.
Yeah.
The sword fight between the two men was kind of awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
I was like, if you're gonna go there, have some cool fight scenes, and they've had some great fight scenes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I like Maeve giving them autonomy to kind of carry out the fight themselves
Yeah.
and respecting those kind of boundaries.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing, so you had mentioned last week being disappointed with the bigger Shogun World episode. Shogun World disappointed me this week in the sense that it seems like we're just gone and maybe we'll see you later, like that they were never really a part of the story. It was just kind of a field trip.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think Shogun War was a side trip. Which is too
Yeah,
bad.
and that's a little disappointing.
Well, it also just felt like those robots aren't fully unlocked. Like those people, there's none of them seem to be really awakened to
Yeah.
the extent that Maeve is, or that she's at least explained it to her crew.
Right.
Even though her crew doesn't also seem to be unlocked.
Right.
It seems to be like Maeve and Dolores, and then the other people are just kind of minions who can be tough. Like Teddy's not unlocked.
Right. Right. Although he may be now.
Oh, shit, the Teddy stuff this episode.
Teddy's broken,
Yeah.
but he doesn't seem to be unlocked. Like,
No, remember what he said? He goes, but I bet you fixed that too.
Yeah.
It seems
She
like he's
fixed him all
got
right.
some animosity to
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Bernard also seems to be, to an extent,
Oh, he's jacked
unlocked.
up for real though.
But he has clearly kind of sleeper stuff in his programming.
Right.
He doesn't know what he's going to do at any given moment.
So is it? I mean, do you guys really think it's just those three?
I think to some extent, yeah. I think the others, like the girl with the snake tattoo, like she's aware of like she's not on programs anymore, but she is sort of still following a program. I think. And I think that true free will is basically Maeve and Dolores, and maybe to some extent Bernard.
One of the interesting characters for me, the technician, the Asian one.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. What I find so interesting about him is now he's in this group where he's got two other humans in there, and they're essentially hostages.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But just like last season, he has this compassion for Maeve.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and last season it felt kind of like, oh, he's been seduced. This guy's kind of timid. But
Right.
he's seen shit. Like the timid guy from last season would be running for his life,
Yeah.
and he's picking up a gun to run out
Yeah.
and help her. It's like, man, that's free will. That's where these robot. I mean, if you want to know who Maeve learned it from, probably getting worked on by that guy all the time. You
Yeah,
know?
that's true.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Also, the new mercenary guy who comes in swaggering and talking about how screwed up they all are. I loved that guy.
He had such like effortless charisma
Yeah.
about him, and how he takes Hemsworth Jr., whatever
Yeah,
that dude's
yeah,
name is,
yeah.
and just like tosses him to the side and mocks him.
Yep.
Fantastic.
It's funny when that character's being badass. I sometimes forget that he's the younger brother, but whenever people are putting him in his place, I'm always like, "You're Thor's little brother."
Yep. Yeah, man. I don't know what else to say. I think they have some interesting things going on, like Ed Harris's daughter kind of being the badass and their fractured relationship. The confrontation where Maeve finally gets to find her daughter, but oh yeah, you forgot that she has another storyline with a different mother and she's not unlocked.
Right.
And you're just fucking her up some more.
I love how she totally just sacrifices the mom too.
Yeah,
she's like,
Yep.
"We're getting out of here."
Yep.
bye.
Yep.
I'm like, why don't you just shut everyone down like you can do? You can
Yeah.
speak their language, you can shut them down.
Am I
Yeah.
remembering this correctly? Did the can I call them Indians? The
Native American.
the,
Ghost
nati-
tribe.
the
The Ghost
natives
tribe.
to the robot world,
Yeah.
the Ghost Tribe. Did they like say, "Hey, no, stop" at the end or something? Like,
I thought that they don't operate by the same like principles, or like they're on a different server or something weird. Wasn't the suggestion by you or Les or
oh yeah, I did have
Ashley
that theory
like,
that maybe the Ghost Nation were actually
like a cleaning protocol?
Yeah, like a cleaning protocol. So they go in to kill hosts, but to capture the like the people that are in there.
Right.
But no, I guess I'm getting mixed up. But I thought for some reason maybe after they had attacked before Maeve's team just started cleaning up house, they were like, "Hey, wait a second, let's talk this through." But
Yeah, they did talk for a second, and
and then the shooting started happening. So who knows? That might go somewhere, and we might get a reveal about that next week.
right.
Yeah.
Show's so great.
It's really good.
It's over halfway through the season now, so
Yeah.
A lot of people were sort of disappointed because Game of Thrones isn't on this year, and we got Westworld was sort of our Game of Thrones. You guys okay with that?
man, I think this show's badass.
I'm okay with it too. I know some people are not as big on this show, but I'm super happy as long as we get this show.
We got this, and if this is too cerebral for you, don't even go near Legion.
Oh man,
Well, the thing that this show doesn't have that Game of Thrones had, if I was out of town on a Sunday, or if I was at a party on a Sunday, I was thinking about Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I was not checking Facebook. But the thing is, nobody's really spoiling this season of Westworld on Facebook because it's too cerebral. Like, it's too heady and
You can't just sum up feelings in a soundbite. You can go, "Whoa, that was awesome," but you're not going, "Hold the door" or some shit like that.
Yeah.
and getting it. Randy
yeah, this
angry.
is
or
hard to
Ice
get to this
Dragon.
point.
Fuck.
Yeah, you're right. It's harder to get to this point.
yeah.
But what Game of Thrones? That's like next level.
Yeah.
That's the golden tuna.
The golden tuna.
Yeah, I got that line from Home Alone when Merv, he's talking about that big house. He said, "That's it. That's the golden tuna. We're the wet bandits."
You gotta stop talking about Home Alone, man, every episode. All right, guys, it is question time. Once a week, if you go to our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/TV Dudes, you can ask us a question, or you can make a comment, whatever you want to discuss that week. And we got a good slew of questions. Slew again. Should I say fuck ton?
A fuck ton of
A
questions.
fuck ton.
Yeah.
We have several shitloads of questions.
3, I believe. 3 shitloads, 1 fuck ton. Yeah. First one comes to us from Stephen Young, who says, "Hey, dudes. With the abrupt cancellation of Roseanne thanks to her Twitter antics, do you think that there should be more consequences for stars who jeopardize or tank their shows due to their off-screen antics? And what could those consequences be? To clarify, thanks to her racist tweet and the other cast and crew who worked on the show are now out of work. A similar thing can be said of the allegations against Kevin Spacey and his impact on the production of House of Cards. I'd love to hear your thoughts." Then he says, "On a side note, I heard Randy's cry of joy when the cancellation was announced on the other side of the world. Speaking of, you still have to wash my car, Randy.
So I haven't been here the last couple weeks.
Right.
What did you guys get me into?
So, this was a couple weeks ago. Stephen Young lives in Australia.
Okay.
And he said, "Hey, per the Patreon sign up, when I signed up, I signed up for the tier that said that Randy was going to come wash my car."
I see.
A long time ago, I think I made a joke on a tier that I thought no one was going to donate to, that you would come wash their car.
I see.
Remember this.
Yeah, and so I'm sorry, but you have to pay for your own expenses. Fly to Australia and wash his car.
No.
That was also part of the stipulation. We don't have the finances. You just got to pay for it.
But the thing is, when you're washing that car, the water's going to fall down the drain.
Now here's
the other direction.
Here's what I need to know. Did this say airfare and lodging included?
No.
Because if Stephen Young is willing to fly me to Australia and put me up somewhere, I'll come to Australia and wash his car.
Steven, just send your car here. He'll do it in his driveway.
Send the car to Austin. If you send the car to Austin, I will wash it. I can't afford to send it back, so you'll have to pay for it both ways. But I will wash the car. That was agreed upon. It's in the Patreon. That makes sense. I will wash your car. I will do it in those shorts that Grant used on the video way back when for the Rogues Gallery promotion.
Right. Everyone go and look up Rogues Gallery Comics and Games commercial.
Commercial, yes.
And look for the one with me in a white shirt and little shorty shorts.
Yeah. I will wash your car, but it has to be in my proximity. So either you bring me to Australia or you send your car to me. Done deal.
Randy was sweating bullets on this question. He's like, what is this? What did I commit to? So what do you guys think about people being held accountable for if their show gets canceled because of what they did? I mean, that makes sense to me.
Well, for years, there's been these morals clauses. Everybody's had these morals clauses like, you have an affair or you say something that's out of line with the morality of the network heads, they can fire you and your contract means nothing.
Your public image is part of your ongoing contract when you are a celebrity for a show. It makes sense that you, to some extent, have to maintain a degree of that is socially acceptable.
But here's the question, specifically with the Roseanne thing, but there should be a clause based on if there's a change in your behavior. Like with Roseanne, how would you ever get her to sign a contract saying don't tweet anything racist when she's like, I did that 5 seconds before I was in this meeting. I'm going to do it 5 seconds after I'm in this meeting. Why would you think I would change that? It's got to be a change in behavior, right?
I feel like the clause that got her fired, they could have pulled the trigger at any moment. But again, they had some type of a plan as soon as they figured out what they got themselves into.
Right.
Here's the thing. I think it's whether you want to subscribe to the belief or not. I mean, it's there. If you say something and people react to it, it doesn't matter your intentions. You're kind of at the mercy of the court of public opinion.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think it's probably not going to be a great thing. I mean, obviously, we're celebrating this example.
Right, but we could be seeing the same thing going on with Samantha Bee.
Well, and, it was super disappointing. And I'm not, supporting him or backtracking, but, I took the Louis C.K. news really hard, you know?
Yeah.
His material really affected me, and just kind of coming to grips with oh wow, he was abusing his position in that way.
Yeah,
and
the fact that that I mean, to a lesser extent, as he's on Sorry, and that whole story and what that means for Master of None. There are a lot of people employed, and there are going to be terrible people when they're at the center of a show. It'd be nice if there was some kind of protection, if they could say, yeah, you can't do. How do you do Louis without Louis? How do you do Roseanne without Roseanne? I mean, there's kind of I'm not sure what the protections are. I'm not sure how you protect people from that. And yes, there should be, but I don't know what you can do within the realms of our system.
Wasn't there that show Valerie that they had to change the second season of?
Yeah,
to the Hogan family. Was it the Hogan family?
It was the Hogan family. Yeah.
So you can drop them, and it could be the Connor family without her.
But I think the argument may be
she'll still profit off.
Do more ensemble shows.
Oh.
That is a good point.
Don't even if you've got if you've got a name like
a Chevy Chase.
Yeah, if you've got a show that's based around a name, you don't have to make that name the title. It can still be a show for an ensemble. Don't name shows after your star so you can pivot to an
There's
ensemble.
been a bunch of these. Like, was it Isaiah Washington who said some stuff in
Yeah.
Grey's Anatomy and he got fired?
Yeah.
Anna Lucia and Libby, they ended up getting a couple DUIs in Hawaii, and they got killed off on the show of Lost.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
there are consequences, and if you have an ensemble show, it's a little bit easier to just kick some people off.
And I think that's the best. That's the most easily implemented kind of protection is ensembles where one person is not set above the rest of the cast. Someone is always first in the call sheet.
Right.
And it is going to be a disruption if somebody winds up out of the show. But if it's built into the titling and the marketing and everything else, it makes it that much harder to do anything but just cancel the show. I mean, we saw this too with Lethal Weapon with Clayne Crawford. To go a little further back, I mean, there's another example too of like someone being terrible and like the show gets canceled. It's just, I think that the answer is ensemble beyond just like having one person who is so carrying the load that if something happens with them, that's it.
Well, and I feel like Community is a great example there because you had two instances. The first one was technically three. The first one was Dan Harmon.
Yeah.
Obviously they had all this stuff in place. They were able to, be without him for a season. The second one was Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
Again, you've built up this great cast around him.
Yep.
So these are examples of like, what happens if somebody does something dumb. But then there's also you look at the Troy character.
Yeah.
And this is a great character and a lot of talent on the show. And the kind of the pairing with him and Abed was this huge part of the show.
Yeah.
But then you lose him too. And I feel like the show even still was good after him being on there because it just had so much built around it. And you're right. Yeah. The ensemble's the way to go.
Also say, I didn't actually have a cry of joy when they canceled Roseanne. I don't care. I didn't care that Roseanne was on. It didn't affect my life in any way. Unlike, say, Two Broke Girls that was wasting an actress I liked, I don't really care what happened with Roseanne.
I mean, who would have known that Thanos was going to be the hero of the summer?
I was a little bit upbeat about it.
Yeah.
I felt like it was a show that was becoming a propaganda tool for Trump to kind of piggyback off of.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't unhappy about it. I did
not a
get
fan of him getting anything or other people feeling like that are Trump supporters feeling like they can use this as a justification, even if it's a little bit of a bullshit shield for a lot of their motivations in the election.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll move past my hostility there. Zach McClernand says, an article on IGN posited that this week's series finale of The Americans was the end of one of the last great golden era TV shows. Based on this logic, one could extrapolate that the golden era will soon finally be over with, say, the end of Game of Thrones next year. In your most humble and wizened of opinions, when did the golden era start? And when, in your opinion, will or did it end? Or is it still going on? And if it is ending, what brought about the end of this and where are we at now? Are we in the silver era?
He's looking for a TV show, but I think, there's a simpler answer, which is the golden era TV started when we learned how to binge television.
You think so?
Yeah, because, I think of Mad Men's one that comes up a lot. And I'm like, what was it about Mad Men early on? And it was like, well, I binged the first season. And then, it was water cooler TV from that point.
I think the to some extent, not just the binge, but the permanence of it. Once DVDs and Blu-rays became a thing and you could go back and shows became more free to be serialized, I think that was the big advent of
serialized and prestige. I would argue that Sopranos was the godfather of
that's a good
of the
point.
golden age of TV.
I would too.
I would say that shows like Hill Street Blues and Oz were precursors to this, and one might even argue those gave birth. But really, the one that ended up capturing the nation's attention.
I wonder what he's going to say, listeners.
No. Was Sopranos?
Yes.
No. I thought you were going to say Lost.
No, Lost is absolutely part of the golden age of TV.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
it's wrapped up in it, and I think each of these added to it. But I think where you start the line for most people is The Sopranos. That's the one that suddenly everyone started paying attention to what serialized TV you could do.
The difference between TV and movies got very difficult to determine with like The Sopranos.
The other thing I'll say
Must
is
watch TV.
the question Zach is asking is the really hard question. Like, it's easy to pinpoint later where something started. You can argue about it, but you can see where something started. Where something ends, you can kind of only see after it ends, and I don't think it's ended yet.
Well, I think that you can demarcate sort of the class of the golden era and say that now we've entered into a new era where streaming services have kind of been a complete game changer.
So if that's the case, I don't think The Americans belongs on the list. Much as I love The Americans, I think Breaking Bad was the end of the golden age.
Maybe. I feel like Americans does get to kind of be one of those holdovers that was still around the era when it came out, like 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
I think The Americans is such a it's such a smaller show for people. Like, a lot of people don't watch or haven't heard of The Americans, who will have known Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones.
But that doesn't preclude it from being a part of the golden era.
Well, that's true.
I think also quality is the defining factor, not necessarily
and
popularity.
If we're talking quality, The Americans is definitely in there.
Like, I would argue that Game of Thrones is sort of that line of the next generation.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones was able to learn from what was successful about the shows in the golden era and build upon that. And it also was able to kind of shift things so that genre television was the dominant force. Lost, you might argue, was also a precursor to that. But
the thing I was also something similar to what Kyle's talked about. I don't think we're in the silver era now. I think we're in the streaming era. That is what it is. It's like the networks are kind of a vestigial. They're the booster rocket that launched everything at this point.
We're in the golden streaming era?
No, not the golden stream. We are not in the golden streaming era.
Okay. Sorry.
title change.
I misunderstood.
Title change. We're in the golden stream.
You know, the golden streaming era happened in Russia.
No, when I think of like the future of TV or like next generation TV, and I'm not just saying it because it's one of my favorite shows, but I think of Fargo in the sense that they're doing something new and innovative with the storytelling in how they tackle like the true crime aspect.
Yeah.
But the design of the show, anthology, each season's going to be wrapped up at the end of the season. Something British TV is much better at than American TV. You can get huge names to come be on your show.
That's true.
And, rack up a bunch of awards. I mean, that's a way to draw talent. Hey, do a season of this. You're going to win a bunch of awards like Billy Bob Thornton, like, this guy, that guy. And they're able to just take the quality of that season of show and just amp it up. So if it's designed to where they can do it season after season, I think that's where the big winners are going to be in the future.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Great question, Zach. Thanks.
Yeah.
Jonathan Hufnagel says, Dearest TV Dudes, now that we are winding into the recesses of summer, I have stumbled around looking for something to binge, idle in the background. I finished all of Beast Wars, but I am craving some reality television. Yes, I know there are better shows out there, but I can't help but get some junk now and then. I have a soft spot for Survivor, and for the hell of it, I've started to watch some old seasons again. I can't believe it has been on for as long as I remember watching the first few seasons while I was in high school. Wow. It slowly became the thing that I looked forward to twice a year, and once I got my mom hooked, it became something we shared together. Yeah. It's been a bit eerie watching seasons I watched when I was 18, now that I'm 34. It doesn't feel that long ago, but it was almost half my lifetime. I know at least one of you has had to have been a Survivor fan at some point. Maybe one of you secretly still watches it and hides it from the others among you. I'd love to hear you guys talk a little bit about Survivor and any thoughts, favorite moments, players, or seasons that come to mind. And if I'm so dead wrong and none of you have ever watched at least one season, I may have to eat my metaphorical hat.
So I went over real quick. So I did watch a season of Survivor, and I was pretty sure, and I'm correct, it is season 2, the Australian Outback season. Survivor is just renewed for its 37th and 38th season.
Oh, wow.
Right.
That's crazy.
They crank out a couple a year.
Oh, my God.
So what you're saying is this show is a Survivor?
Nope. No.
Did you just give the head wiggle of taking your glasses off?
Yeah, I know the listeners can't see that, but
Did anybody else watch Survivor ever?
I watched like the first 4 or 5 seasons, I believe.
Okay.
Like, I was totally on board watching it with the Richard Hatch season, the first season, and how he just naturally recognized that this was a show of manipulation and gamesmanship.
Yeah.
And started like stabbing people in the back and playing a game while everyone else is just like, well, this is just kind of this fun competition. It was fascinating to watch, and I thought he was kind of brilliant at it. And yeah, I remember being hooked, and I similar to Jonathan in the question, I watched this with my family a lot.
So I have a problem with Survivor, which is I feel like it was the patient zero of reality television.
Yeah.
And reality television threatened for a while to wipe out TV. It definitely wrecked network TV for a while.
well, and if you think of YouTube, it may have killed TV.
Yeah. So I have an issue with it because I don't love reality TV. That
I
said,
feel like it forced the hand of evolution in TV.
I guess.
I'm okay with it.
You and Apocalypse.
Well, and if you're going to do reality TV, do you want to do this or do you want to do Big Brother? At least they're stabbing each other in the back on Survivor.
Big Brother
Yeah.
was before Survivor,
Oh, that's right. Big Brother was first.
Ah.
yeah,
Like the British version.
But not in America. Well, Survivor was in Sweden, apparently.
Yeah, I watched a couple other seasons. I remember the Outback season as well. I think that first season and Richard Hatch in particular, all that gamesmanship was just fascinating to me.
I remember the dude falling into the fire. I don't know who it was, but somebody in the Australian season fell into the fire.
I feel
And
like
had to
there
be
was some
helicoptered
other
out.
big moment where everyone backstabbed someone, and now I don't remember because it's been
Yeah.
over a
So
decade.
I watched the season. I was like, oh, that was interesting, and I definitely got caught up in it, but I never wanted to go back for any more.
Is it still a catchphrase to vote people off the island?
I think it might be. I think it became a thing.
Because that was, for the longest time, somebody says something dumb, it's like, we're voting you off the island, man.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the catchphrase.
No.
I don't know if it's as popular anymore.
Did you guys ever watch like Amazing Race or any of those?
I didn't. I know
didn't either.
people were obsessed
Can
with
I
that too.
can I drop my favorite reality TV show of
Yeah,
all time?
yeah.
The Joe Schmo Show.
I don't know what the
Oh
hell
yeah,
that is.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, this was amazing. It was
It was kind of like The Mole or whatever too.
Yeah, I can't think of the network that it was on. Spike. And what it was is it was a reality TV show, but only one guy was not an actor. Everybody was an actor, but this one guy, and it had
It's like The Truman Show.
it had
Oh,
Kristen
man.
Wiig. This was so early in her career; she used a different name.
Okay.
And then what's it from Always Sunny? The Crackit.
Rickety Cricket.
Rickety Cricket. He was the other one on there. Oh, and his character was amazing. To give you an example of what they would do, this guy who's the real person, he would get in confessional and he'd go, I really have a crush on, Kristen Wiig, I just think we're really hitting it off, da-da-da. And so-and-so, this Crackit guy, he's just really pissing me off. He's always, messing with me. He'd wake up the next morning, Crackit would be walking out of her room talking about one night stand, and then she's like, I don't know why I did it. I just, I like him. I get it. And then the guy's in the confessional like, how could this happen? I don't understand.
That's
He's so awful.
monstrous.
Every episode.
Oh my God.
The
that's
thing is,
awful.
though, here's why the show's great. They got the nicest fucking guy in the world. Like, so much so that after he found out it was fake, like, never talked to anybody about it again. But when he thought it was real, like, always tried to help people, always did the right thing. It was like watching a real life Marvel movie.
And that guy's name is Richard Spencer. That's what he was driven to by these awful people.
He's now an incel.
Kat Edison says, and also hi, Kat.
Hey, Kat.
Can you pit the Mick against AP Bio in a wacky It's Always Sunny gang style bracket or some such thing?
I mean, technically, the AP Bio wins because the Mick got canceled and AP Bio continues, but the Mick had 2 seasons and AP Bio only had 1. Also, the Mick was 22 episode seasons and AP Bio was only 13.
Oh shit!
So you could say it's a fait accompli, but it is not. It is actually there's more of a challenge there. So
The bird wins.
I'm gonna say kid versus kid because I love me some Heather, sociopath in the making, but I also love the youngest kid, Ben. Ben was like the best kid since Dewey from Malcolm in the Middle.
Oh, are you talking about the redhead?
The little kid.
No.
The little kid,
that kid.
So if you
Little
pit
murder
Ben
kid,
against
yeah.
Heather for like most disturbing, that's a tough bracket. Where do you go?
Oh, that'd be good though.
And then you got to put Chip up against who's somebody obnoxious in AP Bio. I almost feel like you pin him against Jack, but
the teachers though, right?
The teachers are up against. You think?
Yeah.
Chip versus the teachers is like most sociopath.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then Sabrina.
Wow, you remember all their names.
You matched Sabrina. I love the Mick. I'm so sad it's canceled.
Yeah, it was great.
So Sabrina, I think you match against the girl in the class who's like the want to be
socialite.
Sakara.
Sakara, yeah, Sakara. Yeah. So I think it's Sabrina versus Sakara.
Oh yeah, that's a good pairing.
And then I think you've got
Jimmy.
Jimmy, you pair against. Here's the weird thing, and it's kind of sad. You pair him against Patton Oswalt's character.
Right.
Yeah, I think
the sad sack.
The sad sacks, yes. And then of course you've got who's their housekeeper? I'm blanking on her name.
You remembered everyone else, dude.
I blanked on that. And she was one of my favorite characters, so you got to put her.
Oh, against the woman from the front office.
Yes.
Yeah. What's her face? The one who writes the self-help books for him.
There's your bracket. I hope somebody's writing that down. Go.
She's the self-help lady's gonna die.
I just want to see characters from It's Always Sunny be substitute teachers.
Tess James says, "Dear TV dudes, I have heard that Randy is in fact short for Randrew. Can you confirm or deny this fan theory?"
So I would like to point out that I apparently have a fan contingent in Australia, which is great. I'm big in Australia.
Is Tess also from
Tess
Australia?
is also from Australia.
All right. Is your full name Randrew Landrew?
It is not. It is
Is
not.
your last name Landrew?
This is a vicious rumor. My name is Ranthony. Yes. Landerosity. That is actually my full name. Ranthony.
Oh, wow.
Anderosity. That is my full Landerosity.
And
That's my full name.
This whole time I thought it was just Randy with 8 A's.
That's funny because my name's actually Greek. I'm Grantolopodopoulos Davis Lopodopian. So I get it. Yeah.
And Kyle? Kyle, your full name?
My first name is actually Scott. Like everybody at the DMV and at school, they all got it right. They were right. It's really Scott.
It's Japanese style.
Yeah,
last
exactly.
name first.
That's it. Yeah, I really am Scott. Yeah.
Kyle Volte says, "Okay, TV dudes, what are some of the most memorable TV advertisements from your childhood?"
I think you mean Volte Kyle.
Volte Kyle says, yeah. Man, geez, my whole childhood was one long commercial. It seems like all the cartoons I watched were commercials.
You know what's popping in my head?
What's that?
Do you remember the Crossfire commercial?
Yeah.
Crossfire! You gotta do it!
Crossfire!
You guys gotta remember, I'm like 10 or 15 years old.
Okay, so Crossfire was this board game where essentially you had like ball bearings that you would shoot from a gun, but really you just pull the trigger and it would fall out of the gun. But then these ball
like Extreme Hungry Hippo, where you're shooting out the balls instead of trying to eat them.
So instead of like, kids around a table playing this game, the commercial is like these two kids floating on hoverboards above flames with like the Mad Max group around them.
The most intense game ever.
Yeah, with like metal music on top of it. Crossfire.
Yeah.
You gotta do it.
Dude, okay. That's my answer too. That was great.
I remember the Cavity Creeps from Crest. There was a cartoon. They make holes in teeth.
They would chase them after.
Yep.
Yeah.
With art by Herb Trimp, who was actually a G.I. Joe artist. And I remember the Battleship. You Sunk My Battleship.
Oh, okay.
Board game ads were very contentious. Like, it clearly was breaking up families to play board games. Connect 4 had pretty sneaky sis.
That shows or the game Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, bitch.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of families broken up by board games in the 70s and 80s.
Man, I remember when video game commercials, like before video games were cool,
Yeah.
you would have to like the Hulk Hogan video game, Hulk Hogan would have to be in the commercial,
Yeah.
like body slamming some dude.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll get that video game. And then it'd be nothing like that.
Yep.
Next question comes to us from Alec Miracle. This will be our last one. It says, dudes, I am extremely upset. You guys can no longer do the deep voice when you say permanent record.
Permanent record.
And then he goes on to permanentrecord.com.
PermanentRCRD.com.
Since you won't be saying those words much often anymore, so from now on, in every one of my questions, I'll nonchalantly add in somewhere those quoted words just so you guys can bring me back the joy of making me chuckle when you guys say permanent record.
Permanent record.
There you go, Alec. I hope you enjoyed that. Folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up there. This has been a long episode, actually. We've gone on
a lot of shows. We had a lot of shows.
We covered a lot of shows. But hey, if you guys still want a little bit more, you can't get enough of us, what can you do? Go over to patreon.com/tvdudes, make a per episode pledge, and we are going to stop this episode and start talking about some Disney songs, the greatest Disney songs. We might do a bracket. We might get into a fist fight.
We might.
This could be a big argument. There might be singing. We don't know. But you guys be sure to go to patreon.com/tvdudes, make a per episode pledge, support this show that you love, and we appreciate you guys. We'll be back next week. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Randy.
Thanks,
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you, listeners. And until then,
TV Dudes out.
Permanent record. TV Dudes out.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast and a member of the Electric Sweater Podcast Network. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/tvdudes. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter @TV Dudes. All the music for our show is by our friend and original TV dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith. To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com and electricsweater.com. I'm Grant Davis. Thanks for listening.